So we look at about the 10 leopards, the 10 men with leprosy is what we're going to look at this morning. Starting there in verse 11 through 19, it says this. Now it happened as he went through Jerusalem, meaning Jesus, as you're talking about, that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. When he had entered into a certain village, there he met 10 men who were lepers, who stood afar off and lifted up their voice and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. So when he saw them, he said to them, Go show yourselves to the priest. So it was that when they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when they saw that they were healed, returned with a loud voice, glorified God, and fell down on his face and his feet and gave him thanks, and he was a Samaritan. So Jesus answered and said, were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? Where there are not found who returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? And he said to them, Rise, go your way, your faith has made you well. Let us. As we look about these 10 lepers, you guys have probably heard this passage of Scripture preached many different times, and obviously it comes back to the one that came back to give thanks to God. And I want to start off with simply this, and point number 1 is to be thankful even in difficult circumstances. I want to look at these 10 lepers, these guys that were in a very bad situation here at this time. And what was that situation? The Bible tells me that they had leprosy, and this leprosy, if you guys know anything about it at that time, it was a very, very bad disease. It wasn't something that was easily curable. It wasn't something that you just went to the doctor and you got a little bit of antibiotic or whatever, a little bit of ointment, and that you put on your skin in a few days, you were healed. A few days, James, that you were better. No, this was a very debilitating disease, and if you got it, you were basically, you were shamed. You were done. You was not going to be around anybody. Is basically the worst thing that you could have at this time. I want to give you just a little bit about it, and guys, this is just a little bitty sampling of what leprosy was back here at this time. We know the Bible says, or it tells us that it left sores. You end up having missing toes, missing fingers. What would happen? Ended up your nerve endings would end up dying, and then basically what would happen? Your flesh would just begin to rot off. The smell was so awful that these people couldn't be around anybody, because if you were around somebody, it spread so easy that you just couldn't be around. You were separated from everybody. Like I said, there was no medical treatment for it here at this time. The smell was awful, and these 10 men had to be together everywhere they went because they could not be around anybody other than themselves. So I want to look about the physical side of this. And folks, this is where it gets hard for many of us today when we begin to think about the circumstances that you may have faced this year, the circumstances that may be going on in your life as now. And I want you to think and try to put yourself in the shoes of these leopards here. The physical side, it says they were separated from their wives. They were separated from the kids. They were separated from all their other family members. They was not being able to go to Thanksgiving. They was not able to go to Christmas. They was not be able to, you could say, celebrate the 4th of July with their family, because they could not be around them. They had to be in isolation. They had to be in quarantine. And guys, guess what? It just wasn't for 10 days. It just wasn't for 14 days. It was for the rest of their life, because there was no treatment for this, and these people end up dying. So there was this physical separation. I want you to understand this today, folks. There's some of you here today, you have lost people that you love. You may have lost a husband or a wife. You may have lost a mom or a dad. You may have lost a cousin that you loved. You may have lost a grandpa or grandma that you thought a lot of, and you missing them physically. We know today that there's going to be a lot of empty spots around the Thanksgiving table. There's going to be a lot of empty spots around the Christmas time when you hand out presents. And folks, that we know that part of life is death, and that's all going to happen to each and every one of us one day. But let me ask you this. Can you be thankful for the time that you had with them people? Can you be thankful for the time that God allowed you to have them, to spend that time with them, to soak up them memories and all these things, folks? Because that's all these lepers had here at this time. They didn't have that time spent with their family anymore. They were separated. They had memories. And can we be thankful for God for the time that we had with the people that we used to love, even though we look at our lives and we say, Jeff, this is a very difficult circumstances. Yes, I understand. I lost someone I loved, just a few years ago, and it's different. It's different around the table. It's not the same. But can we be thankful for the time that we had with them people that we love? Can we be thankful for the time that we got to spend with them? Can we remember the memories that we had with them, knowing that they're in a way better place than what they were before? Because folks, we know anybody that we loved, anybody that's went on before us, that's in heaven right now, they wouldn't want to come back here for all the money in the world. There would not be enough things to draw them people back from heaven down here to this earth. It just wouldn't be possible because they wouldn't want to come. So are we thankful for the time that we have? Can we thankful that they're no longer suffering? Can we thankful that they're no longer going through the things that they went through in their life, and that they're in heaven with Jesus Christ, where they need to be and where they are and where they need to be? Let's talk a little bit about the emotional side. Once I said they were separated from their families, and folks, there's the physical and there's emotional. We know when we lose somebody we love, when we don't get to see someone loved, there's that physical side of us that misses them, but then there's also that emotional side of us that misses them people. And one of the emotional sides of the lepers, they had no emotional attachment to their family anymore. They were separated. They were isolated. They couldn't be around them. They couldn't be around him any way, shape, or form. And like I said, the people that we love and the people that are gone before, we have the memories. We have that emotional attachment to each and every one of them now, and we got to hold on to them memories. And crazy as it may sound, guess what? The lepers had each other. They didn't have their friends and their families around them anymore. But guess what? They had the 10 that could be around them. And I know this sounds crazy, but you know what them lepers did? They roamed around basically from town to town, from place to place. And I don't know how the best way to say it, but they relied on everybody else to give them everything because they couldn't be around the people they loved. They roamed around looking for food. You know what the worst part of it? Everywhere these lepers went, you know what they had to yell? They yelled, "Unclean, unclean." Why? So everybody would stay away from them. So nobody got next to him. And when you heard the word unclean, unclean, guess what? Everybody scattered like a bunch of cats probably. Why? Because they did not want that debilitating disease that them lepers have. So not only was these lepers, were they in a bad physical state, a bad emotional state, nobody didn't want to be around them because of how they were. But maybe they comforted each other a little bit. Do you ever think about that? Maybe they comforted each other, and maybe that's what today we need to be doing with our friends and our families we love. Guess what, folks? God may have taken you in a difficult circumstance, but what you need to do now is remember the people that's around you and the people that you still have. That's what we need to remember. We can't focus on what we don't have. We need to focus on what we do have. And I think that's what the lepers tried to do here at this time. Number 2, it says, give God your difficult circumstances. And this is exactly what they've done. You can't wait for the problem to start by walking by faith. And you say, "Preacher, what are you talking about here?" Just give me a second and I'll get to you. When we're in a difficult circumstance, when things aren't going the way that we want them, here's what we often say. Well, God, if you will get me through this difficult circumstance, if you will get me through this difficult time in my life, then I will start serving you. Folks, guess what? That's not how it works, because what happens if God got us through that difficult time, if God got us through that difficult situation, what would we do, James? We'd say, well, God, I don't need you now because I got through it. God expects you to walk with Him through the good times and through the bad times. As I said, people say, God, if you'll get me through A, B, and C, then I'm willing to serve you. But God says that I want you to love me despite of your circumstances. I want you to serve me despite anything that's going on in your life right now, whatever it may be. Folks, and I understand this. This has been a crazy year. I think we can all agree with that. It's been a crazy year, and there's been people put in a lot of difficult circumstances, from kids, not being able to go to school, to families, struggling to make ends meet, to not being able to losing your job, and you can go on and on and on about the difficult circumstances that people have faced this year. And there's some of you have faced some very difficult circumstances. There's some of you that's going to face some before this year's end. But the question is, you walk with God now, not when God brings you through it. You need to work and be a part of Him now. Because it's simply this: God gives you an opportunity to be thankful when circumstances say, don't be. Can you be thankful in the circumstances when you're not supposed to be? Can you say, God, I love you. God, I'm going to serve you. God, I'm going to trust you. God, I'm going to do everything right now, even though everything in my life says, don't be happy. Don't be right. Can you still conserve God? Can you still look back? And folks, we know that's how it builds up your faith. We all got stories. It's like this. If I see God get me through it, and then guess what that does? Dakota, that builds up my faith in God, because I know next time that the same God that delivered me then is the same God that's going to deliver me during this difficult time, during this difficult circumstance. Bible says God's the same, yesterday and today and forever. If God got you through one, He's going to get you through the next one if you have your faith and your trust in Him. As I said today, this has been a rough year for a lot of people, but can we be thankful anyway? Hey, can we be thankful today that our church doors are open? Because there's some places that, folks, the church doors are not open. They're shut up and they're still looking at everything online. They're not getting together as a group of believers because the government's trying to shut them down and all this other crazy stuff. Can we be thankful today that we can have the doors open, that we can meet in person, that we can share a meal together, and we can fellowship with other Christian believers? Can we be thankful for that today? We should be able to be thankful for that today, because some people don't have it. Some Christians don't have that today. But we do. Be thankful for the work of God's goodness. Here's what it boils down to. Look, only one came back. Only one came back. There was 10 of them. And all 10 of them, I can just see Jesus walking down right there, and the 10 lepers, they see a man way far off coming, and I guarantee you, they didn't know it was Jesus. And they see this man coming, and they start to yell, unclean, unclean. And then all of a sudden, maybe boom, they recognize, and it's Jesus. And they want to be healed. And Jesus told him, He said, hey, go to the priest and let him examine you. And that's basically what happened. Jesus healed them, but what they had to do is they had to go back to the priest, and the priest had to look at them, and he had to deem them clean. And then when they were deemed clean, then they could go back to their families. But until that priest done that, they couldn't go back to their families. They couldn't be a part of society like they was before. Think about it. But only one came back. The other 9 was so busy doing other things that only one came back. And folks, I think that's how a lot of us are today. We have a lot of Christians, and only about 10% of them actually thank God for what's going on in their life. Only one of them actually thank God for all the blessings of life. The other 9 of us, folks, the other 90% sometimes of Christians, we forget about the goodness of God. We forget about how we have lived in His goodness. We forget about the blessings that He gives. We forget about all the things He has done for us, and we just begin to take Him for granted, and we say, well, James, you know what? I'm saved, so God, He better bless me. That's what we think. We're saved. God, you better bless me because I'm saved. Folks, it doesn't work that way. We are blessed, and I am blessed because why? Because of what Jesus done for me, not what I do for Him. But only the one came back. Let me ask you, how much time do you think you pray, or how much time do you take every day to thank God for what He's done for you? Do you take your time? Or do you simply, as I say 1,000 times, you go through a laundry list of your wants and your desires? God, this is what I need. God, this is what I want you to do for me. God, I want you to heal this person. I want you to take care of my family. I want you to do A, B, and C. And never once do you say, God, thank you for all that you've done for me. Thank you for sending your Son, Jesus Christ. Thank you for dying on the cross for me. Thank you that I don't have to go to hell because you love me enough to send your Son, Jesus Christ. Do we think about that today? Or do we simply go through our laundry list of our wants and desires? Make sure that you take time this week to acknowledge God and His goodness. Folks, there is not a person here, listen to me, there is not a person here that can't stand up and say, God, thank you for all that you've done for me, but will you do it? This week when all the hustle and bustle is going on, when you're off, when you're with your friends and your family and you're eating a meal together and you're doing all these things, somewhere this week are you going to take time to say, God, thank you for allowing me to do this. Thank you for the family that I have. Thank you for the blessings that I have. Or are you simply going to take them for granted and just roll right on like it never happened at all? Are you going to be that one that acknowledges God while the other 9 go off about their business? Go back to their life? Are you going to be the one Christian around your table that stands up and say, God, thank you for what you've done for me? Or you're not going to worry about it? You're going to be too embarrassed to say anything? You know, it's possible to go through this whole Thanksgiving week and never say thank you to God one time. And I'll tell you what, there's some of you, you're going to do it. You're going to go through this whole week and you're going to think about Thanksgiving and never once you're going to give thanks to God. You're not. Okay? And not everybody's going to do it. I know they're not. Because we get too wrapped up in the things of this world sometimes. And the last thing I want to talk about, make sure your thankfulness leads to actions. As I said, only one came back. The other 9 was worried about, hey, getting back to their families, getting back to their life, getting back to their homes. And folks, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But only one came back, and look what he did. He sat at the feet of Jesus, and he thanked him. And folks, I guarantee you, I bet Jesus has never been hugged like that before in his life. Probably never. Are you going to be the 1%? Are you going to be the 10% that comes back and thanks God for all that he's done for you? As I said, the other 9 were caught up so much in their healing, they forgot to thank the one who healed them. And I think that's what we do today. We're so thankful for the things that we have that we forget about the one who gave it to us. Okay? Hey, everything you have, folks, the Bible says that every good and perfect gift comes from above. So if you think you earned it or you think you worked for it, you better thank God that you're able to work and earn it because he's the one that allowed you to do it. You didn't do it on your own. God gave you the ability to do it. And if he gives you the ability to do it, and he gives you that to make that living for your family, to do whatever, you better thank him for allowing you to do that. And not just realize, well, I can do it on my own. Because, folks, you can't do nothing on your own without the help and the power of Jesus Christ. But here's the good thing about this. Do you realize in these verses, in this 11 through 19, you know what? Jesus never commanded them to come back and give thanks. He said, go show yourself to the priest, and you're made well. And we know, I guarantee you they was running back, and all of a sudden as they was running back to the priest, however far they went, all of a sudden one looked down and said, well, I don't have that sore on my arm anymore. One looked down and said, oh my gosh, I have 5 toes now, and one, and I usually only had 1, now I've got 4 more. And they begin, as they was running, they begin to look at themselves, and they begin to think, hey, I'm made whole again. It wasn't the priest that made them whole. The priest just had to inspect them to say, hey, you can go back to society. That's what the priest done. Jesus never commanded them to give him thanks. Did Jesus command you to give him thanks? I don't know. You should. Many of us don't. Jesus never commanded these lepers to give him thanks. They said, go by your way. But like I said, only that one came back. This week, are you going to give thanks for all that God has done for you? As I said, hey, there's a lot of difficult circumstances going on in this world today. There's a lot of things that ain't right. There's a lot of things that aren't the same as they used to be 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. But are you still able to thank God for all his blessings? I know I can. I can look back over my life and I can see God's work in my life. Is your life perfect? No. Are you still going to have hardships? You better believe it. Is things still going to happen? Bad things going to happen? You better believe it. If you don't believe me, just live long enough and it'll happen. It's just a matter of time. But today, can you be thankful for what God has done for you? And I hope that you can.